Executive Director Frank Fusco, where does the board stand in 2009?
Well, like all state agencies and probably a lot of governmental entities, we have some very tough times ahead of us. We've already been reduced by nearly 20% in our general funds. Agencies that receive our services are looking to us to be even more efficient. And so we have an extreme challenge ahead of us. I think everybody would acknowledge that.
Tell us a little bit about what's happened so far this year and what we should be looking for in the next few months.
Well, as I think most people see or hear about this, but we had an early across-the-board cut in the year, and then the legislature reconvened and passed a bill that basically readjusted most all of agencies' budgets. Ours went down approximately 13%. And then shortly after that, the Board of Economic Advisors reduced the revenue estimate again, which resulted in another 7% reduction of our general funds for our agency. So now what we're looking at is in February, hopefully early February, the Board of Economic Advisors will produce the final revenue estimate. This gives the General Assembly a figure that they can appropriate to for the coming fiscal year. So a lot of what happens in the current year hinges on that February revenue estimate.
But we're probably looking at a situation where the next budget is going to be very tough. Is that what you're expecting?
Yes. We have already been asked and have provided to the General Assembly a 15% additional reduction to our general funds, a plan that would reduce it that much more. So if you take the roughly 20% this year and 15% next year, there are huge reductions coming our way. The challenge we have with this is, since we are a central administrative and a regulatory oversight agency, it is much more challenging for us to convince people of the necessity of what we do, even though our programs save agencies money.
When we get these budget cuts, what do you do and how do you decide what to do about them?
Well, the first thing we do is we contact each of the program managers. Now, one thing about our agency is only about 15% of our money comes from general funds. So it's fairly concentrated in several areas, and then it's kind of spread in smaller amounts through a few other areas. So what we do is we ask, if you had to take an equal share of these budget reductions, how would that impact your program? How will it impact your critical services? And how will it impact your staffing? And when we get that information back, then we speak further with the program managers and we look at any flexibility that we're allowed by law to use if we have other fund sources that we can temporarily use to shore things up. 2 years ago, we anticipated further budget reductions and imposed a 10% travel reduction throughout the agency. Every area within our agency met that challenge, and we continued to impose that. And as a result, our travel expenditures are below the 04-05 budget year figure. So that helps a good bit. But, you know, we can, a large portion of our money goes to people. And I've always said that nothing really gets accomplished in our agency unless people do it. So what we try to do is say, what is the primary mission and purpose of your program? What is the cost benefit of it? And if you lose people, is that going to reduce your cost benefit and reduce our effectiveness, really ultimately in saving taxpayers money?
Furloughs. A lot of agencies have done them here in the last few months. It's something that a lot of people in this agency wonder about. What is your philosophy about furloughs? Do you think that's something the board might do this year?
Well, I never say never, but my first thought on furloughs is that is a temporary measure to an ongoing problem. In other words, if we are short, for example, $1 million, and you're talking, at 15%, you're probably talking $7 million maybe in reductions. 1 day of furlough, that would be $7 million roughly in general funds. 1 day of furlough is not even $50,000 of state funds. So it's really not possible through furloughs to really make up a significant budget reduction. The other thing is, with most of our money coming from other fund sources, it's really not fair, at least in the long run, to the agencies we serve to take the money they pay for a specific service and use it to shore up other services. So for those reasons, I don't really favor a furlough. The other thing that I don't like about the furlough under the present law is that every employee would have to get furloughed on the same number of days. An employee that makes, for example, $15,000 would have to be furloughed, for example, 5 days, and an employee who made $100,000 would be furloughed for 5 days. So I've already requested of the legislature, of the finance committees, and I've spoken with several agency heads who are supportive of this idea, that we try to get the legislature to quickly amend the law to allow us to have variable furloughs, so that we could say, we could set it where we want it and say if employees making $20,000 or less take a 2-day furlough, employees from 20 to 50 could take a 3-day, over that 4 or 5 days. We'd have to figure out how to divide it up, but I would feel much better about the equity of it under that scenario.